Well, Zach Benson's on the podcast. Zach, thank you so much for checking in. How are you doing?
I'm feeling great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're just talking about Costco trips and things like that. And you got a show going on tonight, like you said. So it's a busy night for you, but it feels like it's been a busy couple weeks, I would have to guess, because you just put out a project on February 15th, not that long ago. So how's that been?
Yeah, true life. It's been good. This is like single number three for the album that's upcoming. So this weekend is actually like we're finalizing the last track on the album, which is
Oh,
track
wow.
5 out of 10, but it's the 10th track that we're finishing. So once that's done, it's all about all the fun behind the scenes stuff, aka me staring at a computer for 8 hours a day. And yeah, so we're like, you're catching me in like home stretch moment.
Mhm.
So I'm feeling excited.
Is there like a date you have for the album, or is that still like up in the air?
It is in the vicinity of three different dates, and it really just depends on when we can get vinyl made, which is
Oh,
a fun thing that I've never done before. But apparently, you need a lot of time to manufacture vinyl. So as soon as the album's done and I can get a date on like when vinyl will be ready, then it'll be around there. But
right.
yeah, vicinity of a few different dates. They're all around May slash beginning of June. And
Okay.
that's all my knowledge so far. So
Wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like vinyl is such a big thing now. Like so many artists have come back and like the vinyl train is very much real and active. Was
yeah,
that like a big decision? Was that your decision first off? And was that like important for you to do with putting out an album?
yeah, I've never done vinyl before. And I'm also staring over at my like big vinyl collection over there that I've had since like high school. So I've always loved vinyl. I love when my friends put out vinyl records and I can go to a show and like, pick one up. Um, yeah, I've always wanted to have an album on vinyl. And the first album I ever put out was in 2020. And it was like, I was definitely not in the financial position to be putting out vinyl, making vinyl. Um, and I just didn't think I was ready at the time. But
Mm.
now with this project, I'm like, okay, we're doing it. I want to hold a thing in my hand and be like, this is the album, you know?
Yeah. It's probably a real big accomplishment factor too. Like you said, a lot goes into making the album, and you said that with like finishing the tracks and whatnot. It's like it's a physical, literally representation of all that hard work. And like you said, you can
Yeah.
hold it afterwards and it's not just something that's on the digital world, like you physically can have it.
Yeah. Feels like a very special thing. And like deciding the color of the record itself, and like I just got the little template with the back cover and like the little spine thing,
Mm.
and like making all of that. I was like so giddy doing that. So I'm just like excited about it.
Yeah, well, we're definitely excited to hear the record. I was listening to the singles you put out so far, and like the three that you have right now, I'm in Love, which is two. I mean,
Mm,
one single, twice, same word.
exactly.
Take a Hint and White Lies. So were these kind of to serve as just a little precursor, like get people streaming, excited before the entire project drops?
Yeah, of course. White Lies and Take a Hint were like the first songs that I made for the record. Uh, this is also like second album I've ever put out, but I always like doing things in like projects, like groups of three or five or whatever. Um, and at the end of 2022, I was like, I really want to make an album. Like I want like a big thing to do. Um, so these were honestly like the first two that I had ready, and they
Mhm.
felt like singles. So I was like, these are gonna feel good. Them being Take a Hint and White Lies. Um, and yeah, just decided to put them out once I had a bunch of the album already ready. I've gotten into the habit of just like making a song and immediately putting it out, and then trying to figure out like the marketing and everything else around it
Mhm.
in real time. And so this has kind of been the first time that I'm like, let me get a bunch of these songs ready. Let me get like the visuals planned out, the aesthetic things. Let me figure out what I want to do and then start giving it to people.
Mhm.
Um, which has been really great and nice.
Do you find it like, are you finding more success with that process of like you said, like putting a song together and then immediately putting it out? Because a lot of artists I feel like do that nowadays, where it's you drop single, EP, like shorter projects that lead up to like the greater project, which is essentially what you're doing.
Mhm. I don't know about like successful because for me, it's one of those things where like artistically it's one thing, and then like streaming numbers is another thing, and then like the number of people who reach out to me and say like, oh, I love the song is important to me, that's another thing. So it kind of ebbs and flows, and a song like I'm in love came out, and the response to that in terms of like people telling me it's a very special song to them has
Mhm.
been really, really great, which is exciting. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've really enjoyed the quickness of the internet and being able to make something really fast and immediately have it out for the entire world. But yeah, the last year has just kind of been about intentionality. That's like the
Mhm.
word of my life in the last year. So
Mhm.
I wanted to be very intentional about things.
Yeah. Could you break that
So
down a little bit, actually? Like you said earlier, with the vinyl in particular, or putting out these singles that you felt were ready, you just kind of knew, or with picking a certain image, like what do you mean by intentionality has been like a thing for your past year?
yeah, when I first decided I wanted to do an album, I like this was the first time I ever done it, which I completely stole this idea from Maggie Rogers, who does this all the time. But she has this thing where if I think she did it for her last record, she sat down before the record, before she started writing it at all, and made like a mood board of what she wanted the album to feel like. It was like
Mm-hmm.
colors, textures, almost like pictures and images and songs in a playlist. And I was like, let me try. So I just like made playlists and Pinterest boards and wrote down notes of like exactly what I wanted the project to feel like, which for me was like I wanted it to feel warm. I wanted it to feel like all of your friends were together in this like wood panel basement from your childhood, and like everyone's like picking up guitars and screaming songs at each other and like telling stories. And I wanted it to feel very like a rock star fantasy almost.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of been like the guiding light. So intentionality for me really started with like making sure that I knew what I wanted to make before I started. Where previously I'll just like open up a Logic session and be like, let's see what random diddly doos I can make today, and
Yeah.
then like go from there. But this time I was like, I really want to like intentionally know that there's a goal that I'm heading towards and make the things that will service that, you know?
Right. So you do a lot of your own producing and mixing, I assume, right?
Yeah, this project, I've usually produced everything myself, and the last EP I put out, I mixed and mastered it all myself too. And that was just out of like I didn't have money and needed to like learn how to do it on my own. But this time I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give myself a budget. Again, intentionality. I'm gonna tell myself that I'm doing this. I had friends reach out and say that they wanted to either like help write or help produce
Yeah.
or mix and master. And so I just kind of followed that. And I had really nice friends who helped me out with mixing and some production stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guitar work as well, because I only know like 5 chords.
Right.
So this album has a lot of guitar on it, which I'm really stoked on. And I did
Yeah.
not play most of it.
Gotta give credit where credit is due, am I right?
Say that. Shout out to Matt Burridge of Pulses. Shout out to Quotes for Movies. Great artists. Love them. They help me with guitar.
That's awesome. Well, like, I think a question that we should address is you are an independent artist, correct?
Correct.
And I mean, so that comes with a lot of budgeting and, like you said, intentional with like what you can afford or what you can do or what you can learn on your own. Like, has that been a challenge since you've started doing music like professionally? And also, I assume music isn't your only thing. Like, do you have something else for like, paying the bills and keeping the lights on?
Oh, of course. I got my little 9 to 5 customer service job. I do my little emails, and on the side, I'm like, literally all of today was like me sending an email, going to this mix and like adding a vocal layer,
Hmm.
going back, sending more emails. Um, so that's my day-to-day life. But yeah, I mean, I've always been like a DIY focused person. I grew up playing drums in like pop punk bands in Virginia. So the vibe has always kind of been like, oh, we have a friend who knows how to like make merch and he can make you a t-shirt. And then we have another friend over here who knows X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
So it's always sort of been like polling your group of friends and seeing what people are willing to contribute. I'm also the kind of person who is like, I will spend 8 hours just staring at my computer trying to figure something out until it happens. So, yeah, I mean, I really started making music on my own because I was like bored and lonely in my college apartment.
Mhm.
So I was like, let me figure out this Logic thing that everyone's talking about. Actually, I think it was GarageBand at the time.
Mm.
So, uh, yeah, I've kind of always been, you know, let me just do it myself and see if I can figure it out.
Yeah. But those college years are probably so integral for you launching music. Like from what I
A
understand
billion
too, you
percent.
were like uploading videos on social media, so that obviously had a huge hand in where you got to now, I'd assume, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I really started making the music under my own name because like music and performing was so my life when I was in middle school and high school. Like I said, I was like playing in bands. I was doing like SoundCloud covers of like real friends songs. Shout out to Warp Tour. um yeah, I was doing that, and then in college I gave it up because I was like, I need to be an adult now,
Mm.
and that sucks. So I started making music and putting it up online, doing like open mics around my college town too. And then that snowballed into like playing more shows with bands and uploading more music and then like making music videos and doing a tour. Like
Yeah.
it's never really been like, oh, we're starting what am I trying to say here? I know a lot of artists who want everything to be like 100% perfect before they're able to put out like an album or
Hmm.
before they make a debut with something.
Mm.
And for me, I think, especially because we're in this internet age where you can essentially make a complete album on your own in your bedroom and upload it within like a week, you know? Um, I've just always been excited about like making things and getting them up and out there. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's always kind of been the vibe.
And I mean, it's a testament to you. And this was another question I wanted to talk to you is, as you've grown in your career, your connections do too. So, I mean, has that, I assume as well, that has probably helped you, like you said, meeting people that know how to design a shirt or meeting people that will get you into another concert. Like,
Yeah.
so that's, I'm sure like you've really networked from all these things that you're doing on your own.
Yeah. Shout out to gay Twitter. Like it's it's so much fun. I remember like I think it was right when I graduated from college, one of my friends put me in this huge like Twitter DM group, and it was like 30 different queer DIY musicians who were making like pop music on the internet. And I was like, oh snap. This was also right before I moved to New York. So I
Okay.
was like in that group where people there was this guy named Verdon Aurora who's this like pop musician and actor. And as soon as I moved to New York, he was like, oh my gosh, hi, you're in that Twitter DM group. Like, let's hang out. Let me help you meet like people here. Let me get you acquainted in New York.
Yeah.
Uh, that was super nice. I met like Gregory Dillon then, who we've worked together a few times. Um, yeah, like gay Twitter's been the best.
Wow. Talk about an endorsement. I never thought I'd hear this one on the podcast.
Say that. Everyone get on gay Twitter.
If you want to launch your next career, that's how you're gonna get it started.
It's the moment. I mean, like, there's like, I love scenes within music. Like, when I was in high school, it was like the Warp Tour pop
Yeah.
punk, like, moment. Um, and then I got to college and I was friends with a lot of like musical theatery type people. And so that was like the whole, like, it was kind of Panic at the Disco, My Chem, that kind of scene.
Mm.
And then when I got to New York, it was like gay pop boys. And so it's just kind of been this weird amalgamation. And right now I feel like I'm in the middle of this like alt indie scene kind
Right.
of thing. But it's just fun to know people. I think even outside of the music thing, it just feels like a good community of people that you can like hang out with, inside jokes, bada bing, bada boom. I don't know what else. It's just
I got
nice.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like that was actually something I wanted to ask too. Like you're touching on all these different eras of your life and the different sounds you've been exposed to, and now you've hinted at where you're currently at sonically. But would you say you've always kind of been in that indie kind of rock, like, realm? Like, and also you feel free to share like some of your inspirations as well. Like you mentioned, like Maggie Rogers is one. So I assume you're
Yeah.
definitely like an indie boy.
Oh, of course. I feel like indie has always kind of been like a through line throughout my life.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely a phase type of person whenever I look back at like my musical obsessions, like Warp Tour, huge one. 2013, like Tumblr soft grunge kind of moment is integral in my life. Um, but yeah, in the last like few years or so, I really have been like diving really deep into more like guitar focused
Hmm.
indie pop, indie rock kind of things. I think my current obsession is like always with two V's.
Hmm.
Their album that they put out like a year and a half ago, Blue Rev, is like every time I go back and revisit it, there's a new thing, a new song, a new moment that I, it's replaying in my head over and over again. Um, yeah, huge obsessions there. Dayglow,
Hmm.
absolutely love. Um, I don't know. I like things that sound straight from the 80s a little bit.
Okay.
Like I kind of grew up, my mom played a lot of like Prince and like Tears for Fears and all of that. Um, yeah, 1975 is huge for me. Muna's huge for
Mm.
me. I don't know, One Direction, shout out.
God, the directioner goes indie, it seems.
Say that. Well, here's the deal. The last few One Direction albums, like Midnight Memories to Four to Made in the AM, hits,
Hmm.
bangers. Like, if it wasn't One Direction, I feel like a lot of people would regard those as like indie pop classics, to be
Hmm.
honest.
Ah,
Like
interesting.
Stockholm Syndrome, great song. Fireproof, hello. Um, love One Direction. Shout out
I
to
love
them.
that. Do you have a favorite? Was there like a favorite band member?
I mean, I was a Harry girl all the way around. And like we're still being fed. Well, we haven't been fed in the last like year or so, but
Right. But I mean, he makes music that just lasts like eternity. Like
I
as
was
it
literally
was like playing for like a year and a half on the charts. It's crazy.
say that. And I was listening to his first album
Mm.
earlier this week because I think I saw a tweet about him and I was like, oh, Harry Styles, and then got back onto that train. Um, and that first album is like the way that it's recorded, it feels like it shouldn't be a pop record. It feels
Mm.
like it's like straight out of like 1972 or something.
Yeah.
Um, which is such a bold choice. I love Harry Styles.
Yeah, and I feel like that 80s thing is really resurgent now. Like you see a lot of artists doing that. Like Dua Lipa has been somebody that's like really been
Yeah,
taking the reins on that.
I have
I
the
was
Dua
gonna
Lipa
say I
poster
keep
right
seeing her
there.
behind you, and I'm like, all right, so he's a Dua stan as well.
Say that.
And I mean,
I
like
come and I
somebody,
go.
like somebody I've been really into lately is like Ali X, and her new album is like all
I
like synth.
love that new album.
Yeah, it's good. Like you see that coming, like you're saying, you go through phases as an artist, and the music industry does too. Like all of these sounds and whatnot are really coming back. And I mean, you've kind of hinted at it, but is it something you see yourself doing more of? Like with these songs that you did put out, is it kind of going in that more poppy record or poppy direction?
Honestly, no. I'm gonna say no on that because uh for me, when I think of like the stuff I really like around that 80s era, it feels very like synth focused. Like I
Mm,
said, I love Tears for Fears. They're one of my like all-time faves. Uh, but when I am thinking of like the new record on that mood board, I had a lot of like David Bowie, Freddie
mm,
Mercury, Elton John was a really big one too. I don't know. And I feel like their stuff kind of leans a little bit more in that like heavy distorted guitar direction, like piano, acoustic guitar.
Hmm.
Um, whereas a lot of the 80s stuff that I really like is that sort of more not necessarily electronic, but like synth based,
Hmm.
sort of wonky, uh, gated reverb kind of moment. Phil Collins is another one. I can't believe I didn't say Phil Collins,
Oh, well,
but
now's your chance. Talk him up.
oh, well, here's the deal. On the record, the last track I wrote it with my friend Z Machine,
Hmm.
my other friend Landon Elliott, and we went into the session being like, this song needs to be a Phil Collins Tarzan soundtrack, you'll be in my heart type
Love
beat.
that.
And I think we achieved it, which geeks me out so much because like Tarzan soundtrack is no lie, probably a top 10 album of all time for me.
I mean, he didn't have to go that hard, but he did.
Say that. And thank God he did. Strangers Like Me, get out of
Yeah,
here for Disney.
right. Like, ugh, he just makes all of us cry. It's ridiculous.
Say that.
So, I mean, like, we've talked a little bit too about how it is being an independent artist, but do you have any, future aspirations for ever signing with a major record label, like a management deal? Is that ever on your foresight?
Maybe it's going to be a lowercase m maybe on that
Hmm.
one. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people who have been signed to both major and I guess minor record labels. I don't know if minor is the opposite in this situation.
We'll go with
Smaller
it.
indie label kind of situation. Um, and I want to say 80 to 90% of those people did not have a good experience.
Hmm.
And that's things I've heard firsthand of like albums being held by the label because they didn't think it was good enough to release or they didn't want to put money behind it. Uh, so I know a lot of people who have like spent a year working on a project and then it will never come out.
Right.
But I also know people who have signed to labels and are then touring with huge artists and uh, having things start to go their way. And that's really exciting to think about. But for
Yeah.
me, I don't know. Maybe it's like a little bit of control that I am scared to relinquish with other people. I think I've just been doing it by myself for so long that now I feel like a little bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to it. Like I know
Yeah.
what I'm good at and I can do myself, and I know the people who can help me in the ways where I'm not necessarily great. So
Right.
it's like, besides the money aspect and the sort of networking like doors that can be opened, I'm kind of content with where I'm at right now. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
if
like,
someone wants to give me $1 million, give me $1 million, but I
what
don't
we
see
were
that happening
saying
soon.
earlier too is like, you've been doing all of that on your own, like the going to gigs, the producing, the writing, yeah, you make a good point. If you don't really need a team behind you to do all that, you're fine on your own. But
Yeah,
yeah, it always comes
I
down to a money thing, it seems.
I played a show in LA at the end of last year, and there was this guy who came up to me afterwards and was like, "You're really great. I do this stuff for like labels." I forget what his title was officially, but he was like, "You want to get on a call and discuss things?" And I was like, "Sure." We got on a call and he was like, "So we can do a distribution deal with you." And I was like, "Oh, I already work with a distributor and we have a good thing going there." He was
Mm,
like, "Okay, well, do you have publishing?" And I was like, "Actually do have publishing and I do it through this place." He was
mm,
like, "Oh, do you need help working with songwriters or producers?" And I'm like, "No, I have a pretty good network of people actually that I
yeah,
can just hit up." And he was like, "Oh, well, see you later." And I was like,
yeah.
"Whoa, wait a second. That's crazy that it took that call for me to be like, wait, I'm really like doing this on my own, you
Hmm.
know?" And I also feel
Yeah.
like I'm a pretty organized person. I feel like a lot of people who sign to labels need someone to be like, "Hey, you're doing X, Y, and Z today."
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I have like all my lists and all my notes apps and things. So I feel content. But again, if anyone listening wants to give me $1 million, I'm here.
Yeah, that'll be a good exposure for both you and myself if somebody decides to donate that much money from listening to
Say
us.
that. Hey, listen, we're putting out the call right now. We're starting a GoFundMe.
Oh my God, yeah, I honestly should. It would help you and I both out.
And
Who
thank
couldn't
God for
use it?
that.
Yeah. Well, something too that you kind of touched upon with, building that bigger network if you were to sign with a label. I mean, we won't jinx anything. Um, but do you have like any like dream collaborators or people you'd ever really want to work with besides like, the acts that you have already?
Of course. If we're talking like big name people, get me in the room with Muna right now. Um, Honestly, get me in the room with anyone who knows how to play guitar super duper well.
Mm,
Like a few days ago, my friend Matt helped record guitar for this last song that we're working on. And me just sitting there and watching him like shred a little bit, I was like, this could be 16 hours of my day just
mm.
watching talented musicians be talented musicians. So honestly, anyone who has like a super high skill level with things, put me in there, but especially Muna.
Yeah.
Love them so much.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, you never know what could happen, especially in
Say
this day and
that.
age, like with the digital stuff, as we're saying. You really never know.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
We'll put it out in the universe. We'll manifest.
Thank God.
So you're saying the project, like the full album, is gonna have 10 tracks, and you're done
Yes.
with all 10 tracks, you said?
All 10 tracks are done. 9 of them are like mixed, mastered, ready to go. And this 10th one, I did vocals for yesterday. Guitar was done on Wednesday. And right now I'm just sort of in the, you know how sometimes you're like really in the weeds of editing something or working on a
Mm,
project
yeah.
and you need to sort of like take a step back and think like, oh, is this actually a good thing, or did I just do all the individual parts really
Yeah.
well? You know, that's kind of the mood right now. I need to like give it some space to breathe and then come back to it in like a day or two and see if it's actually a good song. But
Yeah,
I think
for
it's a good
sure.
song. I feel good about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like too, you're gonna have to give the record like a full run through and be like, am I comfortable with this song being here? Does that need another layer of whatever? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it.
Yesterday, I said it's going to be track 5, but honestly I had like a panic moment last night where I was like, is this actually track 4, about like ordering stuff. So maybe this will be track 5, but maybe it'll be track 4. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it shows you care about what you're putting out, which I think at the end of the day is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think albums for me are very much like, if you're going to be putting out an album, you want people to sit down and listen to it front to back. Otherwise you just be putting out singles all the time. So
Hmm.
I want to make sure the
Exactly.
order makes sense. Like it tells a story, the songs are flowing into each other. Um, yeah, that's why I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I'm gonna have to keep an ear out for sure. And I hope everybody listening keeps an ear out for Zach Benson's project dropping, later this year, we'll say. Won't put an exact
May-ish.
May-ish, we'll
I'm gonna say
say.
May-ish. I'm
May-ish.
confident it will be no later than June.
Okay. So yeah, we'll get a little summer vibes going. We could
Woo.
always use more of that. Why don't you let people know, Zach, where they can, keep up with you and listen to your stuff that's currently out?
Of course. My name is Zach Benson. There's also a NHL hockey player named Zach Benson. So if you see someone not wearing a hockey mask, it's probably me on Google. um, yeah, Zach Benson or Back Zenson on all social media platforms. I'm on all the streaming sites. Zach Benson. Uh, what else? I'm hanging around Virginia. If you're at like a Taco Bell, I'm probably there. Um,
Maybe they can catch a show of yours. You do have one coming up in March, I saw. So you
true.
might have some shows coming up.
March 14th, I will be at Gallery 5 in Richmond, Virginia. And I think we have one more in April that is going to be announced shortly. And
Awesome.
then yeah, as soon as this album is finished on my end, again, I'm going into behind the scenes booking, promotion, stay on my computer all night kind of
Yeah.
mode. So hopefully a bunch of shows in the summer and all of that I can't wait to plan in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to it. And Zach, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.